Welcome to Branding Room Only, the podcast where your personal brand gets a front row seat. I'm Paula Edgar, and if you're here, it's because you know your brand isn't just about what you do. It's about how people experience you. In each episode, you'll hear stories, strategies, and lessons from leaders and influencers who built their brands and made their mark. And I'll share the tools you need to do the same. Let's go. Hi, everybody. It's Paula Edgar, and welcome back to Branding Room Only. I want to talk to you about something that's deeply personal to me, which is this. For over a decade now, I have been guiding people through intention and goal setting exercises. And I want to begin there because that matters. The work didn't start as a product. It didn't start as a program. And it didn't start because January rolled around and I felt like I could offer something. It started because I needed it. I needed a moment every year to pause, to take stock, to tell the truth about what I had just lived through, and to decide intentionally how I wanted to move forward. And over time, what began as something personal became something very much communal and community-based because people kept showing up. And they kept showing up not just with notebooks and with goals, but with real lives. With grief, with hope, with ambition, with exhaustion, with questions they hadn't had the space to ask anywhere else. And so as we enter into this new year, this reflection feels like especially important to me. Not because the calendar flipped, but also because the calendar flipped, but because reflection is how we make a meaning out of motion. Without it, we just keep moving. And with it, we choose how we move. Like my mother always said, if we're going to be the wind or we're going to be the leaf. Over the years, I've had the privilege of witnessing extraordinary things through this process. Extraordinary. There's so much magic. I have seen people get jobs they didn't think were possible. I've seen people leave jobs they had outgrown but were afraid to walk away from. I've watched people get promoted, pivot careers, and finally ask for what they deserved. I've seen babies born. I've seen people get married. I've seen people leave relationships and they needed to because they were no longer healthy. And I've seen people grieve deeply and still choose hope. I've seen people write books, launch businesses, go back to school, sit on boards, pass the bar, step into leadership, and refine success on their own terms. And it's such a powerful thing because what is important about this and the energy we bring together is that it's not just the outcome, it is also the process. That's why the shift from intention to goal setting or goal setting to intention happened because I realized that the process is important. None of those things happen by accident. Once we shift ourselves toward this is what we want to do, something changes. All of these things happen because people slowed down long enough to reflect, to name what mattered, to identify what they needed to release, and to decide very much and often courageously how they wanted to show up next. That's the power of intention. When I first started doing this work, I thought the most important thing was goal setting, right? Like I said, is what do you want to accomplish this year? What do you want to achieve? What do you want to check off? Because that's what we're taught to focus on. New Year's resolutions. What are our goals? Results, metrics, outcomes, wins that can be explained quickly and posted easily. But year after year, what I realized is that the real shift doesn't happen just when people meet their goals. Of course, we love goal setting, but it happens when they reflect on the year they lived, on the intentions that they set. It's when someone pauses and says, I didn't recognize how much this year changed me. Or when somebody says, I was successful, but I'm also deeply tired. Or when they say out loud, I stayed longer than I should have because I thought that's what I was supposed to do. Reflection creates honesty. Honesty creates clarity. And clarity is the foundation of growth and of a strong personal brand. So one of the ways that I guide people into that clarity is through choosing a word of the year. And because I am a facilitator and a teacher, I do it myself, right? So this is not a resolution. It's not a list of promises. It is a word. It's something to guide us through the year. It becomes an anchor. It becomes a language that we use when things feel messy. It's something that we set ourselves to. It becomes that filter of saying yes or no when things become overwhelming. What are those words? My word of this year was, or last year was, move. I've chosen words like engage, advance, connect, joy, move. And for this year, it will be ask. But this year I have six words of the year. And so I want you to go back and watch the recording of my intention and goal setting session so you can hear why. But for me, it is, it's like a manifesto. It's like a commitment. And each word reflects not just what someone wants to do, but how they want to move through their life. Right. And so when somebody chooses a word like joy, it's not just because they feel like their year is going to be easy. It's them saying they're not going to postpone their joy until every lesson is learned and every box is checked. They're going to strive for joy. When someone like me chooses a word like move, it's not just about speed or action. It's about momentum. It's about refusing to stay frozen in fear, indecision. Lots of other words come to mind, but I have watched people choose their word and return to their word when their motivation faded, when their plans shifted, when life and the world interrupted their expectations. A word of the year doesn't just control your year, but it grounds you in it. And that becomes the core for a vision board. And vision boards also and often come next because I want to talk about them honestly. They're often misunderstood. Some people are like, vision board. They're not magic. They're not about wishing without working. And they're not about pretending that obstacles don't exist. They're about visibility and intention setting. They force you and me to articulate what we want in a world that constantly tells you what you should want or makes you feel like you have to have everything set. They make what can be sometimes abstract, they make it more concrete. My vision board for me was usually a lot of word-based as opposed to photos, but it exposes patterns. Especially for me, the gap between what I say I want and what I actually prioritize. So it is an exercise that I drive people through because I need to do it. So I have seen people, when I used to do this in person, stop in the middle of their vision board and realize that everything that they've chosen reflects rest, ease, freedom, but that their goals are all about grinding harder. And so if you have a disconnect, that matters. You need to be able to have alignment. Alignment matters. So I love having the word as the anchor, making sure all of the goals and intentions are incorporated into the vision board and making sure that it's alignment. Because, I mean, to be frank, what I've witnessed consistently over the years is that people often arrive to these sessions tired, but still hopeful. And not necessarily always, sometimes physically tired, but soul tired. They are busy often, but not intentional, accomplished, but maybe not fulfilled, successful on paper or online, but feeling depleted in real life. And one of the, I think, common realizations that people have is I've been moving, but I haven't been choosing, right? I've been, like my mom used to say, the leaf and not the wind. Remember, busy does not mean aligned. Busy does not mean intentional, and busy does not mean fulfilled, which is why I do what I do. And I reflect on this, like that reflection invites discernment. It asks not just, can I do this, but should I? And why am I doing this? And that shift, it changes everything. So now I want to talk to you about rest. Rest is always a theme that comes up during my intention and goal setting because people come in exhausted. They are carrying the belief that rest must be earned. They can't afford rest. There's no time for rest. And that if you slow down, it's indulgent, not necessary. And that maybe that pushing through that they do is a proof of their commitment, but that is not true. What services collectively is usually that the truth that rest is not a reward. It is a requirement. Sleep is strategy. Boundaries are strategy. Saying no is a strategy. And I love when I see these folks coming to these understanding of how they show up and when they set these boundaries, and when they realize that they have not to earn rest, but they deserve rest. People have given themselves permission, sometimes for the first time, to stop performing productively and to start prioritizing sustainability. And that shift shows up and changes how they show up in every part of their life. which means it impacts their brand. And I care about that. Another powerful realization that I love about my session is that people tend to want to give and also to ask for help. A lot of people assume that others know what they need. They assume that support will just appear without being requested, and they assume that everything that they do proves that they are strong. And year after year, someone has the realization that outsourcing is necessary. It is not indulgent. It is intentional. Asking for help is not weakness. It's clarity. One person, I remember saying that something that stuck with me, which was doing everything myself isn't strength. It's a bottleneck. And I could take that quote and use it for myself because it really does resonate. That awareness changes how people move through the year. Realizing is almost as important as achieving, because people often come and focus on what they want to add. I'm going to get this new goal, these new roles, new responsibilities, make this money. But the breakthroughs that happen in the intention and goal setting session is what happens when they name what they are letting go of. One of the questions that I ask in the session is, what are you tolerating? And it brings back reflections. And so people are thinking about letting go of old expectations, unhealthy dynamics, toxic bosses, toxic spouses, over-functioning, living in and with the shoulds. My therapist always says, we are done with shoulds. It's what do I want? So we often come to that reminder that letting go is not a sign of failure. It is a sign of discernment, that we can prune the things that are not serving us. And that releasing sometimes creates momentum that is adding more than a goal ever could. Another thing that often comes up is comparison. It's a recurrent theme that comes up every year. Comparison drains joy. I say it all the time. I don't believe in competition. I believe in inspiration. Because comparison, it drains and it distorts perspective. It convinces people that they're behind when they're simply on a different path. Everybody has their own path. So almost every year, whether they reach it for themselves or I tell them, they realize I don't have competition. My only competition is who I was before, not somebody else. And that my path is my path. Timing is yours. Your journey is yours. Your path is not a race against anybody else's highlight reel. What I love about this reflection is that it dismantles that comparison and it brings people back to who they are in themselves. So let's talk about some of the questions that I've asked. They have evolved over time and they will continue to do so, but they always center reflection. How would you describe the year you just lived? What are you most proud of and why? What drained you? What energized you? What did you tolerate, like I said, longer than you should have? What did you release? Who supported you? And one question that has become really powerful for me is this: knowing what you know now, what would you have done differently at the beginning of the year? And sometimes it's nothing because we didn't know, but it's helpful to be able to reflect on where you could have had a different pivot point because of a choice that you made and to do that differently going forward. And it's not reflecting from regret. It's from wisdom. It's from the knowledge that you now have. And that question ends up revealing patterns. It shows people where they rushed, where they ignored, where they didn't rest, where they didn't ask for help soon enough. And that information is a call to be guided, and not to shame, but to be guided as to how you go forward differently. And it's why I love this collective reflection. And there's just a magic because you know that there are, hundreds of people coming together at this time in this space to set those intentions and those goals. There's a power in the witnessing. It's a power in accountability and setting those intentions with other people, not necessarily hearing them, but seeing, because I share, what the results are when I'm asking the questions. And there is courage and encouragement in not being alone. And I love when people reach out to me in the middle of the year saying, I hit this goal or this thing happened, because we are collectively saying this is going to be our intention, our goals. I have watched people take risks that they never would have taken otherwise, not because the fear disappeared, but because the clarity that we have driven towards, it outweighed the fear, right? That the excitement that we have because we're doing it together is fantastic. And for me, at some point, I realized that doing this work is part of my calling. It's a part of my brand. It's helping people to slow down to tell the truth to themselves, helping them to prioritize reflection instead of skipping over it, helping them to understand that growth is not always acceleration, but reflection always gets you to a point where you can do either consistency or to do better. Sometimes that growth looks like alignment. Sometimes rest, definitely saying no, and always choosing what you're going to release because it no longer fits or serves you. And sometimes it looks like choosing a completely different pace. I've had people have revelations, and I'm so proud that I have the opportunity to help people navigate this and that they connect with each other. The chat when I'm doing these sessions is always popping. People are helping each other, sharing resources, etc. One of the most important lessons that I've learned for doing this more than a decade is that reflection is not a luxury. It is a necessity, and it is a leadership skill. If you don't pause, you repeat patterns. If you don't reflect, you build on autopilot, and that often doesn't mean building. If you don't name what matters for you, someone or something else will decide for you. And you want it to be that whatever you decide has your best interests or your goals and intentions in mind. So as you step into this new year, I want to invite you to resist the urge to rush. Don't rush past the year you just lived. I want you to plan, but I want you to reflect first. Don't skip that reflection because it feels uncomfortable. And don't confuse motion or busyness with meaning. The goal isn't just to move forward. It is to move with intention and to hopefully hit those goals in the meantime. To move in a way that honors who you are becoming and not just what you are achieving. That's the practice. That's the work. That is the calling that I am proud to stand in as a part of my personal brand. And I'm honored to have the opportunity to do it with all of you each year. And so if this is the year you're going to continue to iterate and build and learn with me when it comes to personal branding, I am grateful to walk that path with you. Until next time, my friends, I want you to stand by your brand, and I will see you soon. Bye. That's it for this episode. I appreciate you hanging out with me on Branding Room Only. Now, please do me a quick favor. Head over to ratethispodcast.com/branding so more people can join this conversation. And make sure to stop by paulaedgar.com/events to see what's next. Whether I'm live, online, or in person, I'd love to see you there. See you next time in the Branding Room. And until then, stand tall, shine bright, and always stand by your brand.